The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Jake Martinez's backyard, illuminating the tension that had been brewing for months. Its above-ground pool stood like a monument to neighborhood conflict, its blue waters reflecting not peace, but a simmering battle of wills that was about to reach its boiling point. Jake wiped the sweat from his brow, gripping the wrench with a determination that spoke of more than just home maintenance. Next to him, a stack of dismantled pool components told a story of calculated revenge, meticulously planned and now ready to be executed. It had started 6 months ago when Karen Reynolds moved into the house behind his, a self-appointed neighborhood watchdog with nothing better to do than measure other people's grass length and scrutinize every minute detail of suburban life. She had made Jake's existence a living hell from day one. The first complaint came about his pool's alleged improper positioning. Then came the citations about the fence not meeting some obscure homeowners association regulation. Karen had a direct line to every municipal department, and she used it with the precision of a heat-seeking missile, targeting Jake with bureaucratic warfare. But today was different. Today, Jake was taking control. He'd remembered the last straw, the day Karen called the city inspector about a supposed safety violation with his pool. The inspector had shown up, measured everything, and found absolutely nothing wrong. Yet the harassment continued. Anonymous complaints, passive-aggressive notes, constant surveillance from her kitchen window. The wrench clicked against the pool's metal frame. Each turn was deliberate, a mechanical symphony of calculated retribution. Jake knew exactly what he was doing, and more importantly, he knew exactly how Karen would react. His neighbors had long since grown tired of Karen's constant complaints. The Rodriguez family next door had stopped speaking to her after she reported their teenage son's basketball hoop as a neighborhood eyesore. The elderly Thompsons across the street had been cited multiple times for excessive garden decoration by her relentless crusade of municipal micromanagement. Jake's pool dismantling was more than just a home improvement project. It was a statement, a line drawn in the perfectly manicured suburban sand. As the last bolt came loose, he heard the familiar sound of Karen's screen door opening. He didn't need to turn around to know she was watching, her beige capri pants and oversized sunglasses, a uniform of suburban passive aggression. "What do you think you're doing?" Her voice carried the shrill tone of someone who believed the world revolved around her complaints. Jake simply continued his work, a ghost of a smile playing on his lips. He knew this was just the beginning. Karen had no idea what was coming, but she was about to find out that pushing someone too far always has consequences. The first section of the pool frame hit the ground with a resonant clang, a sound that would echo through the neighborhood like a declaration of war. Karen's reaction was instantaneous and predictable. Within moments of Jake beginning to dismantle the pool, her manicured fingers were already wrapped around her phone, her thumb jabbing furiously at the screen. Jake could practically hear the righteous indignation in her breath as she prepared to unleash her next attack. "This is absolutely unacceptable," she shouted across the fence, her voice rising an octave with each word. "You can't just start demolishing a structure without proper permits." Jake continued working, methodically removing each section of the pool. He'd done his homework. Every single action was calculated, legal, and precisely documented. The permits were filed weeks ago, something Karen would soon discover to her dismay. As the afternoon wore on, the pool continued to come apart piece by piece. Neighbors began to peek out their windows, a mixture of curiosity and anticipation brewing. They'd watched Karen's reign of terror for months, and Jake's systematic dismantling of his pool felt like a symbolic rebellion against her tyranny. The Rodriguez teenagers, who had suffered through Karen's multiple complaints about their basketball hoop, watched from their backyard. Miguel Rodriguez nudged his sister, whispering, "Finally, someone's standing up to her." By 4:30 p.m., half the pool was dismantled. Jake worked with a precision that suggested this was more than just a home improvement project. It was a carefully orchestrated plan. Each bolt, each panel removed was a calculated move in a chess game Karen didn't even realize she was playing. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Karen, unable to contain herself any longer, dialed 911. Her finger trembled with what she believed was righteous anger, her voice pitched to a near-hysterical frequency when the dispatcher answered. "I need to report an emergency," she declared, her eyes never leaving Jake's methodical work. "My neighbor is destroying property. He's dismantling a pool without proper supervision." The dispatcher, who had fielded countless calls from Karen over the past few months, recognized her voice immediately. There was a momentary pause, a beat of almost imperceptible hesitation that spoke volumes. "Ma'am," the dispatcher responded coolly, "are you reporting an active crime?" "Absolutely," Karen nearly shrieked. "He's destroying a perfectly good pool. This is vandalism." Little did she know, Jake had already prepared for this moment. Spread out on his garage workbench were meticulously organized documents, permit approvals, city planning permissions, and a detailed log of every single communication with municipal authorities. The first police cruiser pulled up exactly 17 minutes later. Two officers stepped out, their expressions a mixture of professional duty and barely concealed weariness. They'd been called to this address before, multiple times, always by the same woman. As they approached Jake, Karen stood triumphantly on her back patio, a smug smile playing on her lips. She was certain, absolutely certain, that this time she had Jake right where she wanted him. But Jake just continued working, a calm smile barely concealing the anticipation of what was about to unfold. Officer Mike Rodriguez, no relation to the Rodriguez teenagers next door, approached Jake with a professional demeanor. His partner, Officer Sarah Chen, hung back slightly, already sensing something unusual about this call. "Sir," Mike began, "we received a report of potential property damage. Could you explain what's happening here?" Jake wiped his hands on a shot towel, perfectly calm. "I'm removing my pool," he said matter-of-factly, then reached into a nearby folder. "I have all the necessary permits if you'd like to see them." Karen, who had been watching from her patio, suddenly looked less confident. Her triumphant stance began to waver as Officer Chen walked over to examine the documents Jake was presenting. The paperwork was immaculate. Not just the pool removal permit, but a comprehensive file documenting every single interaction with the city, including Karen's multiple frivolous complaints. Each document was time-stamped, notarized, and organized with military precision. Officer Chen's eyebrow raised slightly as she flipped through the pages. "These all seem to be in order," she said, her tone professional but with a hint of something else, respect, perhaps, or amusement. Karen took a step forward. "But he's destroying the neighborhood. That pool is—" "Ma'am," Officer Rodriguez interrupted, "Mr. Martinez has all the necessary approvals. There's no violation here." What happened next was something the neighborhood would talk about for years. Jake had prepared more than just permits. Attached to the documents was a comprehensive timeline of Karen's harassment. Copies of every complaint she filed, documented instances of her repeated attempts to create problems where none existed. Each page was a testament to her relentless pursuit of neighborhood control. Officer Chen couldn't help but shake her head. "Ma'am," she addressed Karen directly, "filing false reports is a serious matter. We've been called to this address multiple times, and each time there's been no actual violation." The color drained from Karen's face. The neighborhood, which had been watching with increasing interest, began to murmur. The Rodriguez teenagers were filming everything on their phones. The elderly Thompsons peered over their fence, silent witnesses to Karen's impending downfall. Jake remained calm, almost serene. This was about more than just a pool. This was about standing up to a bully who had terrorized the neighborhood for far too long. "We'll be following up with a formal review of these repeated false reports," Officer Rodriguez told Karen, his tone making it clear this was not a suggestion, but a statement of fact. The city takes harassment and misuse of emergency services very seriously. Karen's triumphant afternoon had turned into a public reckoning. The neighborhood watched in a mixture of shock and satisfaction as the officers continued to speak with her, their body language making it clear that she was now the one under scrutiny. As the pool continued to come apart piece by piece, Jake couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. Not just for himself, but for every neighbor who had been tormented by Karen's relentless complaints. The suburban battlefield had a new victor, and his name was Jake Martinez. The fallout was swift and merciless. Within a week of the pool incident, Karen found herself facing consequences she never anticipated. The city's administrative review board took Jake's documentation seriously, very seriously. A formal hearing was scheduled, and Jake was prepared. He had meticulously collected every single complaint Karen had filed over the past 2 years. Parking violations that weren't violations, noise complaints about children playing, reports about lawn heights that were millimeters above the supposed regulation. Each document was a piece of evidence and a larger picture of harassment. The neighborhood watched with a mixture of anticipation and quiet satisfaction. The Rodriguez family brought popcorn to their backyard barbecue, joking that this was better entertainment than anything on television. The elderly Thompsons prepared affidavits detailing their own experiences with Karen's relentless municipal warfare. Jake's documentation revealed a pattern. Karen hadn't just been a nuisance. She'd been systematically attempting to control the neighborhood through bureaucratic intimidation. The city officials were not amused. The hearing room was tense. Karen arrived in her typical ensemble, pressed khakis, a pastel blouse, and an expression of perpetual disapproval. She clearly expected to be the one in control as she had been for years. But Jake had other plans. He presented a comprehensive timeline. Each complaint Karen had filed was dissected, analyzed, and proven to be either completely baseless or grossly exaggerated. Phone records showed her multiple calls to various municipal departments. Neighbor testimonies painted a picture of a woman who had made it her personal mission to control every aspect of suburban life. The Administrative Review Board listened intently. These were professionals who had seen their share of neighborhood disputes, but this was different. This was systematic harassment of the most insidious kind. Ms. Reynolds, the lead board member, said, his voice cutting through the room like a knife, "You filed 27 separate complaints in the past 24 months. Of these, not a single one has proven to be substantive." Karen's confident demeanor began to crack. The room was silent except for the scratching of pens and the occasional rustle of papers. The consequences were swift. A formal warning was issued. Karen would be required to attend a mediation course on community relations. Her ability to file complaints would be scrutinized. Any further frivolous reports would result in significant penalties. But the real punishment was public. The neighborhood knew. The city knew. Everyone understood now what Jake had endured and how he had fought back. As Jake left the hearing room, he caught sight of his neighbors. The Rodriguez teenagers gave him a thumbs up. The Thompsons nodded with quiet respect. Even the city officials seemed to give him a look of subtle admiration. Karen, for her part, sat stunned. Her weapon of choice, bureaucratic harassment, had been turned against her. The hunter had become the hunted. The pool was gone, but something far more significant had been dismantled that day. Karen's reign of neighborhood terror. 6 months after the pool incident, the neighborhood had transformed. Jake's stand against Karen had become more than just a personal victory. It was a turning point for the entire community. The once tense suburban street now buzzed with a newfound sense of camaraderie. Neighbors who had previously avoided each other now shared weekend barbecues. The Rodriguez teenagers helped the Thompsons with their garden. Block parties became a regular occurrence, with everyone sharing stories and laughter. Karen, meanwhile, had become a shadow of her former self. The administrative hearing had clipped her wings, and the community's united front had effectively isolated her. She no longer patrolled her property with the same militaristic precision. Her once pristine lawn looked slightly less manicured. Her complaints had dwindled to nothing, and her influence had evaporated. Jake had used the space where the pool once stood to create a community garden. Neighbors contributed plants, time, and energy. It became a symbol of what could happen when people chose connection over conflict. During one of the neighborhood gatherings, Miguel Rodriguez approached Jake. "You know," he said, grinning, "you're kind of a local hero now." Jake just shrugged, humble. "I just wanted to live in peace," he replied. But everyone knew he'd done much more than that. He'd shown the neighborhood how to stand up to bullying, how to fight back with documentation, patience, and dignity. The city had implemented new guidelines for complaint management, inspired in part by Jake's case. Frivolous reports would now face stricter scrutiny. Neighborhoods across the region began to take notice, seeing the power of community solidarity. Karen's last attempt at relevance came during a neighborhood meeting. She tried to raise a complaint about the new community garden, arguing it would reduce property values. The room fell silent, then erupted in laughter. Her power was gone, her influence neutralized. As the sun set on their street, Jake looked out over the garden he helped create. It was more than just a patch of land. It was a testament to what happens when people choose understanding over conflict, documentation over drama, community over control. The pool was gone. Karen was defeated. But something beautiful had grown in its place. A neighborhood united.